want to let you know that I just finished in the past hour reading all the stuff. I hadn't had a chance to get into it, so I'm going to need a lot of help.
Okay.
You
Well,
know.
what my help is, what I do is there's a YouTube of a Calvary church in Santa Barbara who did and he does a study of the book of Daniel.
Oh, wow.
And he really gives it, just like I didn't get the whole thing of chapter 7, but chapter 6 is quite a story. It's
nice.
Quite a chapter. And
Good.
he really provides a lot of context and detail. So I just feel a lot more confident about when I read this, because I'm like, oh, now it makes sense. And it really is, it's really interesting. And then in chapter 7, he talked about the dreams that Daniel was having and the beasts that he sees, and then he breaks down what that represents. And and then I had to stop. But yeah, so I really, really, really love, getting extra study and,
sure.
So yeah, it's really something. So
they're good stories.
Yeah.
And they're good historical background,
Yes.
And it covers a part of, the whole timeline that, up to Jesus' birth that we haven't really worked on, so really, really useful.
Yes. We got Pam in here too. So,
good.
Hey, how are you feeling, Dale?
I know.
Well, I feel really cared for. My wife did all the things for me when I was like, I didn't have it all together. So I was really kind of disappointed. And what the problem was this morning is that there was so much traffic getting down to this surgery center in Encinitas. And man, I tell you, we were so late. Oh, I was so worried. And when I said, when you take my blood pressure, folks, you're going to see it really high. But the thing is that the surgeon was late, or the podiatrist surgeon was late anyhow on another operation. So it worked out fine. And I ended up waiting there for a long time, but Marion waited the longest. She had to wait out in the car for me. So anyway, it was a test of patience, but she held up well, and she helped me hold up well. So it was nice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I hope that you feel better soon, that that your recovery is quick.
Yeah. Well, fortunately I was able to get most everything done around the house, before the rains, and everything held up well. So if it comes again, we should be in good shape. And, hopefully my time will be, well spent, and hopefully I don't think it's going to be painful. A couple of days, I probably get over most of that kind of stuff and should be fine. Just a big super inconvenience. That's primarily, the thing.
Yeah, I imagine. So do you have to take any heavy drugs or anything? Are you wanting to take a nap right now?
Antibiotic, in case there's any infection from the operation.
Course.
And then they have a painkiller, that they or pain medicine that does have some opioid in it, but it's also has Tylenol in it as well. It's a mixture there as well. So I should be fine. We'll see how it goes. And but I gotta hang in there with the Bible study, folks. Now you're going to be my lifeline.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, you'll be my lifeline. I say, I don't have any association with church except my folks at Holy Happy Hour Bible Study.
No. Well, it's a doozy tonight for sure. I'm surprised. Maybe there's been some movies about it, because Daniel chapter 6 is really something.
Oh yeah, it is. It is.
And there's the lion's den, right? How many times have we said that, Pam? I thought about you. The writing is on the wall, and when they threw in the lion's den,
right.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they got this from the book of Daniel. This is so crazy. So crazy.
Yeah, there's so many things, there are so many references there that we use every day. Don't think about it, And now we know where it's from.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get. Okay.
I certainly like 6 better than 7.
Yeah, well,
was a struggle for me. I mean, I had to get all kinds of commentaries to see what am I reading.
Yeah, right, it's very it's a lot more complicated, and I got to the first part of it, But the second part, yeah, as far as the beast that Dale and I were talking about just before you got on, and so yeah, so there is a lot more. But yes, apparently chapter 6 is known. Daniel chapter 6 is one of those. It's like the best book of the Bible, or the best chapter in Daniel, and yeah, and it really is. It's really something. So it kind of reminds me of Ruth, where it's this story, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next?
Yeah,
so,
right.
Really, really loved it. So okay, so why don't we get started? And again, you hang in there as long as you can, Dale, but I completely understand.
Sure. Yeah.
Pam and I got this if you want to,
No, I can do the readings, but I'm not really good on the background because I didn't have a chance to really get into it. So you guys got to help me out.
Okay. I'll do my best.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Okay. So who would like to start?
Why don't you let me start?
I'll let you start.
Okay. That way I can get out of it early. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read the question, and then I'll read the passage, and then I'll read the commentary. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what are we told about the reorganization of the government under Darius, and to what position was Daniel appointed? See Daniel 6:1-3. It seemed good to Darius to appoint 120 satraps over the kingdom and station them throughout the whole realm, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now this Daniel was distinguished among the administrators and the satraps because he possessed this extraordinary spirit. So the king planned to set him over the whole realm. With the coming of the Medes and the Persians to power, there came a reorganization of the government under King Darius. Darius set up 120 satraps, governors over the kingdom. Each one was assigned to a particular province of the former Babylonian Empire. Over these 120 satraps, Darius appointed 3 administrators. We are told that Daniel was one of these 3 administrators. Furthermore, we learn that Daniel was promoted above the other 2 administrators.
Mm-hmm. So as we read in the previous chapter, there was Belshazzar, I believe, who was partying, and remember the big party, and he died that night. And so the Medes and the Persians came in, and what I understood is the satraps were more of the administrators or the supporters, and there were 3 governors. And Darius was now the king. He had taken over, and they were trying to restore order because it had been taken over. So they were trying to restore order to Babylon, and that Darius decided that he knew about Daniel, and apparently Daniel was 80 years old, around 80 years old at this time. So
I didn't know that. That's really
that was new to me too. So he was appointed as one of the governors, and they knew him to be a man who was the good spirit was, he had a great attitude. He just had a great attitude. So he was appointed, and there were other people within the government that I don't know if it was the satraps or the other 2 governors, but they were jealous of Daniel because you couldn't shake him. He had a great relationship with Darius. Darius had a great relationship with him. And so there was this conundrum that they were in, because they tried to get all, like in politics, they tried to find all the dirt, but they couldn't find any. He was dirtless. Yeah. So they had to figure out a way to kind of trap him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they did, but what a story, right? What a story.
Yeah,
so
what a story.
That's that part right there. So, okay. So who would like to read next?
I guess I better.
Okay.
Okay, number 2, what do you think motivated the other administrators to plot against Daniel? Where did they initially look in their effort to bring charges against him? Why did they fail? Then the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they could find no instance of negligence or corruption because he was faithful. He was guilty of neither negligence nor corruption. No sooner do we learn of Darius's plan to promote Daniel, we learn of a plot against Daniel, perpetrated by the other administrators and no doubt motivated by jealousy. Initially, they sought to find occasion against Daniel with regard to the kingdom. They searched for some impropriety, some indiscretion, some scandal or incompetence, but their search to dig up a scandal or a case of incompetence proves futile because Daniel was faithful. Daniel was faithful to the Lord, and he recognized that the chief part of his faithfulness to the Lord was the faithful discharge of his everyday business affairs. As a result, there was neither incompetence due to neglect nor scandal to be found. He's a clean guy.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And he was known for that. I mean, he's been around for a while.
Sure.
And Darius respected him, but the other thing about Daniel was that Daniel was faithful to Darius as king as well. He wasn't his God, but he was his king, and they wanted the best for each other. And so that makes sense that the others were threatened by that, because he probably listened to Daniel. And there were, how are we going to shake this? How are we? So they're in a situation. It's like, man, there's nothing bad on this guy, so they start to plot, obviously concerned about their own, what their future was. I'm not really sure, but it's so typical in politics.
Yeah,
and,
the ambition,
Yeah. And it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Which is really just really interesting. Maybe we should look at Daniel more often to find out what's going to happen in the future.
But, here again, you have Daniel faithful to his God, and also faithful to his master,
king. Yeah.
chief. He didn't mix the two, and he didn't necessarily see being faithful to his master as an affront to his being faithful to his God.
Right.
He could be faithful to both.
You're going to be faithful to both. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Your own personal conviction. You're faithful to your own personal conviction, but you're also faithful to the one to whom you're responsible. So it shows that there's I don't know if there's a lesson there, but yeah, I sometimes have to do things, be faithful to our government. I have to be faithful to our church, and I don't necessarily always agree with all of them,
Sure.
But I try to be faithful to my own personal conviction.
Sure. We get down on our knees and we pray. And
right.
If there was anybody who said, you can't do that in your home, or you can't, we're going to, if someone said, you can't go to church on Sunday.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And I think about, when we hear of these things of people in other countries that, people who've been persecuted for being Christian. I'm like, if I was standing in front of somebody that I knew could take my life, if I admitted to being a Christian, would I admit that?
Yeah.
And I would be scared.
Sure.
I'd be afraid.
Yeah.
But I would say, yes, I have to say that without any hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
Just, okay, I guess there must be some message in all of this.
That's it.
It's
a brave stand. Mm-hmm.
But that's just there. That's one place where it's never shaken me. If someone doesn't like me because I'm a Christian, or somebody doesn't, okay. Yeah, that's how that's going to go.
Exactly.
Or how I pray, or how I do my faithfulness, they're going to the Episcopal Church, or, I get the, oh, don't you guys have wine there all the time? Don't you guys have a Bible in one hand and a drink in the other? I'm like, oh, yeah. Bible talks about being this talks about drunkenness, not having wine. So I don't know what so again, you kill him with scripture. So or you counter with scripture rather. So
exactly.
And I look at Daniel as an example of that foundation, that strong foundation, but also knowing just as Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You render unto God what is God's.
That's a great analogy.
He does the same thing, until they start to mix the two,
right.
Pray to Caesar as if he is your God. Yeah, Jesus isn't going to do that.
No.
So, and nor, as we know, does Daniel. So,
but you can see these were stories that developed over time, but you can see how in the Jewish community they would enjoy relating these stories to the younger generation as they grew up and pass it on from generation to generation. This is what Daniel did. He was faithful to his God, and he was also faithful as far as he could be to his master. And that would be something that, some sort of a value that the Jewish community would want to pass on to the younger generation. And it was a valuable means for doing that.
Yeah. What do you think, Pam?
What, me again?
No. Just what were your thoughts? Because I see you shaking your head.
You want me to read the next one?
No.
I totally agree. Yeah.
It's just such a great one. So having failed in their first attempt to discredit Daniel, what do these administrators now do? Oh, it just gets it's like a bunch of girls. Finally, these men said, I know, sorry, we shall not find any basis for charges against this Daniel unless we find something against him with regard to the law of his God. So these administrators and satraps went together to the king and said to him, King Darius, live forever. All the administrators of the king, along with the prefects and the satraps, the advisors and the governors, have agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce an injunction that whoever makes a petition to any god or any man for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, O king, issue the injunction and put it into writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the laws of Medes and Persians that cannot be repealed. Having failed to discredit Daniel in matters pertaining to his everyday business affairs, these men are forced to look elsewhere. Indeed, they are forced to create a situation that would cause Daniel to be found to be an offender. They choose to make their plot revolve around Daniel's devotion to Christ, because his faith in the Lord was well known. These men now contrive to create a situation in which Daniel's faithfulness to Christ will cause him to become unfaithful to the king. Acting in concert and under the guise of speaking for all the officials of the realm, these men petition the king to issue an edict and enforce an injunction, i.e., make an irrevocable law, a law that makes it illegal for anyone to petition any god or man other than the king. So what do these men do? They go to the king and they, Darius is he's got an ego and they know it. So, oh, you're such a great guy. We should, for 30 days, they should be praying to you and only you. And if they don't, something's going to happen to them. And he says, yeah, okay, I can get into that. I like that. So he decides, and they put him in this corner to say, but once you sign this, it can't be irrevocable, not even by him. Yeah. So he does it. And that's where we are right now. That's they've set the trap. They've set the trap, and what a trap. It's so, and I was even surprised. I was like, I wonder how Darius is going to figure this out. So there's where it's at right now. So why don't you move on with that, Dale, and tell us.
Okay, I'll read this one. Okay. What happened to Daniel as a result of his faithful commitment to the Lord? See Daniel 6, 11, 16, and 19 through 28.
Wait,
Okay.
we're on number 4. We're on,
Gee, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I was looking for a big part. Yeah.
Well,
You
you
wanna
can do
switch?
4 and 5.
Yeah.
Want me to do 4? You do 5?
Okay. I'll trade you.
Okay.
Because I didn't read this hardly to begin with anyhow, so I at least ought to brush up on it. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Upon learning that this petition presented by the administrators had to be signed into law, how did Daniel react? Even when Daniel knew that the edict had been signed into law, he went into his house. Now the windows in his upstairs room were open towards Jerusalem, and got down on his knees 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks before his God, just as he had done before. Daniel did not alter the normal course of his devotions, nor did he alter the content of his devotions. He continues to give thanks unto the Lord his God. Daniel exercised his devotion to Christ with unwavering steadfastness, even though it meant violating the king's decree and running the risk of suffering the dreadful consequences. And he knew those were going to be, that's really being brave.
You hit it right on, Pam.
Oh.
Yeah. You hit it right on.
Yeah. You know, he walks out, he goes back to his house, and he gets on his knees just like he always did. Unwavering devotion.
Right.
Unwavering.
Right.
I really felt like this is saying, be brave.
Yeah.
This is just about being brave.
Yes.
Wow.
Exactly.
Being brave, believe in me,
Yeah,
and it'll be okay.
True to your convictions.
Yeah.
And Darius respected him for that.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't believe in his God, but he believed in Daniel's belief in God.
Sure.
And that's what made it because they had a very close relationship. Daniel was respected by Darius, and Darius knew that he was respected by him. So it was a very close relationship, hence the reason that the others were so concerned. So
yeah. Very jealous.
Yeah. Such an ugly look, on people.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It
But
is an ugly look.
Again, that's the way sometimes politics works.
Oh yeah.
Fortunately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. But if you're true to your convictions, and they're honorable, then as Christians, we believe that we're going to come out on the right side in the end.
Right.
Okay, is it my turn now?
It's your turn.
I can go ahead. This is my baby.
Yes.
Go.
Okay. Good. Okay. What happened to Daniel as a result of his faithful commitment to the Lord? See Daniel 6, 11, 16, 19, 28. Okay. Then these men went together and found Daniel making petitions and prayers before his God. So the king gave the order and they brought Daniel and threw him in the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, your God, whom you continually serve, will deliver you. Very early in the morning, the king arose and hurried to the lion's den. When he approached the den, he cried out to Daniel in an anguished voice. The king called out to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve, continually been able to save you from the lions? Then Daniel answered the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, and he has shut the lions' mouths. They have not harmed me, because I have been found to be innocent before him, and also I gave orders. Also I've done nothing wrong before you, O king. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. So Daniel was lifted out of the den. No kind of wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had brought the charges against Daniel were brought in, and they threw them into the lion's den. They, their children, and their children and their wives. Before even they reached the bottom of the pit, the lions overpowered them and broke their bones to pieces. Then King Darius wrote in this proclamation to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language who dwell in the world. May you have an abundance of peace. I issue a decree commanding that in every part of my kingdom, men are to fear and tremble before the God of Daniel. For he is a living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom is one that shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall continue to the end of time. He delivers and rescues. He performs signs and wonders in heaven and earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and Cyrus the Persian. Laying their trap, the conspirators now proceed to bring it on their innocent victim. They catch Daniel in the very act of his devotions. Having witnessed the crime, in quotes, they now bring Daniel before the king and demand that the royal edict be enforced. When all efforts of the king fail to spare Daniel, he is led away to the lion's den. But the Lord spared Daniel by sending his angel to shut the lion's mouths. Consequently, Daniel survived the ordeal without harm. Following his removal from the lion's den, those who perpetrated this crime against Daniel were themselves cast into the den, and they were devoured by the hungry lions. Because of Daniel's faithfulness, the name of the Lord was honored, and Daniel himself was made to prosper.
I mean, I think about that, and I think about Darius. I mean, who got a better night's sleep, Darius or Daniel? You know, here's Daniel.
Right.
And I had read where, or I'd heard where Darius was probably up all night because he had tried to find any kind of loophole to try to get around this. Because the one thing about Darius was that there was remorse, there was regret that he had, sounded like a really good idea. 30 days, you get to praise my name. This is awesome. And not realizing that he was being used and taken advantage of. And so now it's, what am I going to do? I have to follow through with this. I can't, even I can't go against this decree or this, what I've signed into law. So he's hoping and praying that this God, that, your God will save you. You have all this faith, you have all this, I'm sure he knew about how he could interpret dreams. I mean, I'm sure he knew all about that. So he's just hoping, he's come through for him. I probably learned about his colleagues being thrown, saved from the fire before. So, what's a bunch of lions that are hungry? I don't know.
Right.
And so they put him in there and they roll the stone, as he said, they roll the cover, and he just has to wait. He just has to wait. And so Darius, the next morning, it was time. Did the sunrise and the sunrise, and he runs down there, and there was this one part where he's like, I wonder if Daniel kind of played with him, like, Daniel, are you in there? Tell me. And he kind of waits. Should I answer now? Like, oh, please, kind of the suspense. And then of course, Daniel, comes through, and I'm imagining that he's just sleeping with the lions because he's got an angel in there with him. Just how amazing is that? And if I think about that in our times of trouble, can we just, where they feel like lions surrounding us, and can I just rest in, I've given this to God, and the answer is going to come, and I just have to wait maybe until morning to receive that. I'm not sure.
Point. Yeah.
To just, because think how, he's human. So I would imagine going into this den, I would think being afraid, but I don't know, when you're 80, there's this quiet confidence about, you've been around for a long time. I think of other people that are older who have a strong faith, and maybe he walked in there knowing he was going to be okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now he comes out, and then And then Darius is able to, what happens? God's word is restored by the king, I mean, to me, that is incredible.
That is, yeah.
I just think that because he got to witness this firsthand, that he survived this. And so, he wants to make it right to Daniel because he feels bad. I'm sure that Daniel understood Darius' predicament. And then Darius says, I'm going to have these guys pay. I guess I glossed over that the children and the wives went too.
Yeah.
But they said that's the way it was done in those days.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Everybody went, huh?
Yep.
Me.
Yep. Very common. I mean, that was the way it was done.
Wow.
And I immediately when I heard that, when I read that, I immediately thought when Hitler was in reign and he died, he had relatives, and I guess the government said, you guys can't have kids. And I think it was his brother or cousin. And so he said, so they made sure that he was sterilized where he could not.
Wow.
So that no more of Hitler's legacy would ever be.
Wow.
Yeah. So I immediately thought of that. And so at least they didn't throw him in a So, he got it pretty easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really something. But God's word was restored, and all of these kingdoms and these, Babylon, I mean, they all fall. But the one thing that hasn't is Jerusalem.
Right.
Yeah. Even when, and I don't know under which presidency it was where Jerusalem was, well, it's always under attack. I mean, it's always in some way. And there was one time where, and I can't remember which one, where they thought it's going to fall. Jerusalem's going to fall. They're going to go after Damascus. It's going to fall. And it hasn't. Yeah. And so that just restores my faith that God is always going. I mean, he is, even though our church is declining in participants in congregation members, and that we worry about the Gen Z generation where they're, we have less and less and less, but I always fall to, I always go back to God is always going to be here. He's always going to stand firm. He's always going to be alive. He's always going to be until the end of time. So no matter what, even if we only have a couple of people that are attending our church,
sure,
God is always going to be, a church is always going to be standing. So, and Daniel is a wonderful reminder of just how bleak and bad it can get. And here the other governors wanted to just take away that, Daniel's God by this whole decree. And then it counteracted against them, so it really is something. So
exactly. It went completely against them. Yeah. It turned out, exactly the thing that they didn't want to have happen. Like thrown in with your wife and your kids,
oh my gosh, I can't even, I just think about, like, they were so descriptive.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it was such a violent time then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even when last week I was thinking about that business about Diana saying about that I can't say his name. Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, that he was such a violent guy, and such a, well, they all were. I mean, it was a sign of the times, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a violent time, and warfare was pretty darn violent. I mean, it's always violent, but the thing is, this one-on-one kind of business is really, that's really violent.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it boggles my mind that humans have ever, how we've survived. It just boggles my mind how humans have survived. I mean, I can barely get out there in 50-degree weather with a sweater. Like, I don't know how anyone did it in the ice age. We have every creature comfort, and I just don't know I'm just baffled that we're even in existence. Yeah. And I'm confused about how there's Japanese and Chinese and Filipino and Iceland. Different, like it just boggles my mind.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
really amazing.
does.
It's really amazing.
It is. I'm sure there's an answer out there. I just don't know the answer. So,
well,
but God,
Yeah. Well, we Father Wayne Sanders would always say, whenever he got put in a position like that, he says, it's a mystery. And he leave it at that. And he was real happy.
That's it. That's it.
He said, it's maybe it wasn't for you to figure out. It's a mystery, and he was pretty happy with that answer. And I was happy too,
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a bishop. It was another female bishop, not this one, but the one before that. She came to our church quite a bit.
Oh, yes. Catherine
the very thin one used to run all the time. And she talks about that.
Jeffrey Shorey.
Jeff Sorry.
She talked about, and she talked about mystery. She talked about mystery because I told her about how Michael was questioning God.
I remember that. I remember that whole exchange you had with her. Yeah.
And she was like, that's wonderful. And I went, wonderful? And she said, yes, because remind him that even the best of scholars talked about mystery.
Right.
Mystery. And so she says, give that to him and see how he responds. And sure enough, I did. And he was like, I said, yeah. I was like, whoa, wow, that bishop has something going here. So there is something about the mystery, and I'm not supposed to know. So
sure.
So I look at it. So
well, let me just say a couple things, if I may, about what you commented on. It kind of dovetails there. First of all, I think what was so significant, one of the things that was so significant, is that, because of Darius's witness of this miracle.
Yes.
He is changed materially. And he says, then King Darius wrote this proclamation to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language who dwell in all the world. May you have an abundance of peace. Okay, he wishes peace on everyone. I issue a decree commanding that in every part of my kingdom, men are to fear and tremble before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom is not one that shall be destroyed, and his dominion shall continue to the end of time. He delivers and rescues. He performs signs and wonders in heaven and earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So he's not saying, look, just, local folks, this is the way it's going to be. No, he's talking to the whole world. He's making this in all his kingdom, which is really significant. Now, the thing is that I don't know, obviously the writers of this would want to put this down, but the thing is that this one witness is able to change so many things is important, I think. And also they're giving, these Jewish scribes that finally wrote all this down, they're saying, this is the influence that Daniel had on Darius. And as a result, our kingdom, our God reigns supreme.
Yeah.
And that was a message they want to convey.
That was almost like the real impact of the whole thing.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But and I think that's relatively clear, and I think that's super important, because that's a message that they would want to get across. Our God is so wonderful, so mysteriously powerful that he can do these things, and as a result, he changed the king into making the whole world honor our God. But I was thinking too, after having been a Sunday school teacher, and also a real one that appreciates really good storytelling. Yes. I was thinking about this. I said, you know, where it, okay. You know, you could start like this. You say, you know, if you had these kids around, you say, then these men went together and found Daniel making petitions and prayers before God. So the king gave the order, and they brought out Daniel and threw him in the lion's den. You know, and I can see these, you know, and the kids said, "Oh no!" You know, it just makes such a great story.
It is.
I mean, you know, I can just see some old wise rabbi
Yes.
telling a story to some kids, and then where it comes in and says, when you can go on and say, and then they called out, Daniel, oh Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to save you from the lions? And then in kind of a quiet voice, then Daniel answered the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths." You know, and then the kids would say, "Oh, right on, cool, great." You know, I can just see this some really talented, gifted rabbi telling a story among, you know, his group of proteges, you know, coming up, and how this would be something that, you know, you would fix in your mind, you know, as a kid, you know. So I think it's a beautifully well-written story in that way.
Yes.
You know, when they finally wrote this down, they really, you know, they really had, you know, I think that they were thinking about how future generation, or, you know, the former generations had conveyed this down by word of mouth. And so
Yeah.
I think that's great. You know, if I could do, you know, I'm sure that there's somebody who's done a play on Daniel in the Lion's Den. If I had a Sunday school class, you know,
yeah,
that would be one that I would take on. I mean, because I think that, you know, kids would really like something like that, you know. You can set it up, you know, somebody could be Darius, somebody could be Daniel, and you can have a bunch of really angry satraps, you know. Kids usually fit that role pretty good. And you could have a really nice play, a really short play, and a very meaningful play, you know, that one of the kids would remember. So anyway, that's what kind of struck me.
Yeah. I mean, and I even understanding that, I mean, I don't know what the life expectancy was back then, but I would imagine that it was a hard life, and to be 80,
sure,
and then you have this, I don't know if he was frail, I don't know, you know, I don't think he was, but at 80, you know, you're not moving the same as you did when you were 40 or 50.
Sure.
So now you're going to, again, the vulnerability, this innocent older man is being thrown into this place.
Right.
And then he comes out on top. I mean, even that has its own message. You know, what is it that God wants us to get from this?
Yeah.
You know, even at your most vulnerable, I will be with you. If you are faithful to me, I am faithful to you.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, but there are people that have died in the name of God. You know, they have been beheaded, they have been imprisoned, they have been torched. I mean, there's countless stories. So, you know, what was it about this where God spares him? You know, I mean, those who don't get spared, it's usually for the greater good. And Jesus is a perfect example of that.
Yes.
You know, the most innocent, the most, and according to one of the pastors that I heard, there was only 3 people who were blameless on earth. Adam and Eve before the fall, and Jesus.
Right.
And, you know, Adam and Eve had their thing, but Jesus. And if Jesus didn't, the innocent person didn't die on the cross, I wouldn't have an opportunity to get to heaven.
Sure.
So, you know, he took my shame, my stain, my things, and laid it, you know, and put it on the cross for me. So, you know, Daniel's situation is a little different. So,
sure.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. But again, not realizing, I'm kind of embarrassed. I had no idea how much Daniel's story is part of our everyday talk.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, there's so much of the Bible infused in the English language, at least American English language.
But they're just great stories, you know.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
They're just great stories.
Awesome.
you know.
Awesome. Okay, so do we have time? It's 7:47. Do you want to do chapter 7? Let's start on chapter 7.
It's your call, you know, and let me just digress here a minute. And I would throw this out for your consideration. You know, I think, when does Lent start?
It's in February.
February?
February?
Yeah.
Next month.
Yeah.
I just did a, hold on, I got my agenda right here.
Okay.
We're going to.
Yeah, because we can, if you want to end it early, we can do that. I want to learn more about chapter 7 anyway, so I have a little bit more interpretation of it.
On February, okay, so it's like, we're going to set up on, it's like 19th, like the 23rd of February.
Okay, so
22nd,
today's the
23rd of
17th,
February.
so we have like maybe,
It's coming soon.
yeah, we have like four or five more meetings.
Yeah.
And we've got four more chapters.
And they're all
Yeah,
dream
four more
chapters,
chapters.
right?
There's
If
11,
what I
right?
read was
Yes,
one,
11.
the first part is all about Daniel's, who he was and his acts. And then from now on, it's all his dreams.
Dreams, yes. And they
Okay.
are, yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, you know, let me just propose something.
Sure.
You know, usually Father Leland has some sort of a, you know, they have soup suppers.
Yeah, soup supper.
That start in, you know, during Lent.
Mhm.
So, you know, those of us that may want to participate, fine, you know, gives it opportunity. But this might be a good idea, Joanna, because these, and I'm just speaking from what I've heard, these
Sure.
are the apocalyptic chapters.
Yes.
You know, and they're different than the stories that we've
Right.
been through.
Right.
You know, these are the ones who are written down. These are written down in Hebrew. The other ones were Aramaic, you know, and these are written down in
That's
Hebrew.
right.
So
That's right.
it's a
Okay.
little bit different genre.
Uh-huh.
And so that might, Joanna, that might not be a bad idea, you know. And then just kind of, if we've got four more chapters, we could do one chapter each meeting, you know, and that way give me a little more chance to discuss it, because these are a little more involved, you know.
Yes.
And
this next one is, I mean, I was on about 4 different commentaries trying to understand.
Good for you.
I mean, it's hard stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
it's hard. And I just glanced at it, and they had these kings, you know, the you know, which horn represented, you know, which kingdom and so forth. And so there's a lot of symbolism in there that you kind of
and those were like Alexander the Great, and
was the leopard, you know, because he was
with the 4 heads,
you know?
he gave it to his 4 generals. So there's a lot to it, and like you said, a lot more. And I'm glad that I've got a great reference to go to, a pastor that, you know, that teaches it, and he's really passionate about Daniel. And then I'm just amazed at.
Wow, nice.
I'm just
that's
amazed.
wonderful.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I just type in Daniel chapter 7, and he pops up, and I'm like, oh, there's an hour of learning just that chapter. And it's like, I feel like I'm there. So it's really, you know,
great.
God works that way. So I think, you know, others like to read and find it and research it, and, you know, and I'm like, let me see if YouTube's got something. I'm like, oh my gosh,
that sounds wonderful.
I have reached this is my Graceland. There it is. So.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, what's nice is that because everybody's gathering information from various sources, then you have an amalgam, which is, you know, much more is I mean, and you kind of learn from one another, you know.
Sure.
It works nicely, I think.
Yes. So why don't we go ahead and start? Is that okay, Pam? If we just Dale, if we do chapter 7 next week,
right? Perfect.
And then we'll find out. Make sure that we plan it one chapter a week, and then as long as it doesn't mesh with the beginning of Lent. So
yeah,
which
yeah,
we'll be doing.
I think the timing would be perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
then,
It's kind of,
I don't know exactly where we're going to go after Easter.
I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Well, one thing I have been toying around with a little bit is one of Paul's letters, another one, because
Paul.
yeah, because I really I think you learn so much about the early church, the early Christians.
Yes.
Even before the Gospels were written, Paul's letters were written. And so you learn about the thinking of the early church and what they did, and the first description of the Eucharist is in there. I mean, in Paul's letters and so forth. So I've just been kind of like mulling that over in my mind. But nevertheless, got a little time to work on that. We've got to get through Daniel first.
We got to get through Daniel.
Yeah,
and we will.
Yeah,
and we will.
Apocalyptic letters that's very important.
Yes.
That's where to my knowledge, when we were studying Matthew, that's where the idea of Son of Man comes in. I think that's a reference from Daniel. So all this stuff is important. It was important to the early Christians. So I think it behooves us to study it well.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
hey, thank you. Get some rest.
Thank you. And thank you for all your insight, Joanna. We could put a collar on you.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. Yeah, we have big plans for you, Joanna.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I mean, I've been mulling around the whole deacon thing for a while, so I'm just trying to, and I have.
Oh, nice.
I have. So,
very
but
good.
I don't know if that's my calling. I thought it was for a while, and I thought, well, when I went to Deacon Jenny about it, and she's like, are you well? Are you okay? Did you realize? I said, no, I've thought about it. And she's like, you better think real hard. Cause I said, okay,
Yeah. It's a real commitment.
That might be a while. So
it's a real commitment for sure.
Yes, it is. It is. And I am.
Well, you're sure doing a good job of this.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I owe it to you guys. So, I gotta, especially, Dale, I gotta have my A game on. So Dale's always making sure he keeps me on the right path. So I'm grateful that I found this YouTube channel that really delves into it, and it just embraces in such a beautiful way. So I'm just regurgitating what I'm hearing. So it's not just to be clear. Okay, my friends. So I will see you on Sunday.
Thank you.
And I thought about you, Dale, because Gail sent me an email saying, "Hey, don't forget on Sunday," and I was like, "I got you."
Yeah, I know. But the thing was, I really felt embarrassed because, I was going through these prayers of the people, and, it's really not too big of a deal. And I got to the end, and usually the last one is where you say, add your own petitions, either loud and silence. So I got to that point in time. I said, your petitions louder and silence. And then people start calling out these prayer requests and so forth. And I listened to them. I try to remember the names and stuff like that. And I got so engrossed in that I forgot there was one more line. I missed that. There was a long silence. And I said, oh man, what's going on?
Father Leland had your back. It's all good.
He covered for me. Yeah, he covered for me. I said, whoo, that was a good one. So I gotta pay attention to business there a little bit more, but you get caught up in this stuff, and then you go some other place and don't think about what you're supposed to be doing.
That's awesome.
Don't let that happen again.
Well, hey, if you're in prayer, lifting people up,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm grateful for that. So
I'm just glad that so many people offer up their loved ones in prayer.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
I really, really do like that,
Yes.
So, anyway.
Okay, well, I will see you guys. Well,
Okay.
hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. But I will see you guys on Sunday.
Yeah, I probably won't be there on Sunday because I'm not too mobile here.
Okay, I understand.
Do you have crutches?
Yeah, I got crutches. Yeah, I'm kind of like learning to use them,
Oh, it's fun.
I hope I don't ruin anything around the house here. We'll see.
Yeah, they have that. Don't they have like that scooter where you can put your leg up, or like, I don't know if it's on where you got the injury, but where you kind of scoot around on a little scooter.
Oh, they were going to give me one of those, but I said, no, I don't think
They're
so.
fun.
Yeah.
You said you'll take the crutches.
Yeah, I'm good.
Of course.
Good. I'm fine. Yeah. Mary's got it all organized.
Oh, of course.
I'm sure she does.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, you have a great night.
Good night, all. Good night, all.
Thank you again.
Right.
Good night.
Right.
Bye.